Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Council Island. We are experimenting with live, so if people are watching live, you can jump in with some comments and some commentary of your own on what has happened today, which is RCG is dead. To talk about it, I've got Denis with me and Dominick with me. Tell us, what just happened, Denis?
Okay, so a lot of stuff. The headliner is Council has downzoned basically the entire city, 60 something, 70 something percent of it. They have not completely gutted, but damaged the RCG district. So even pre-existing RCG areas or areas that might be rezoned to RCG are now less good in most ways. It'll be harder to build housing there. City Council has also made it much harder to build backyard and secondary suites, and made it not allowed to build both a backyard and a secondary suite in most areas of the city. So folks who have a basement suite for a mortgage helper and want to put their parents in a garage suite, that's no longer going to be possible throughout most of Calgary. So most Calgarians have lost the right to do that with their property.
Yeah, and then I think, is there also a public hearing coming up in July to talk more about backyard suites? Isn't that a thing?
Yes, yeah, there will be. I can get into that later, but that's actually on a separate issue about backyard suites. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll let you continue going after you get your little sippy dippy there.
And the final thing they did was they killed a bunch of attempts to mitigate part of the damage of the repeal. So as we know, the repeal was felt to be politically necessary. I think that's actually not true, but it seems at least some of the councillors sincerely believe that. But it's understood by everybody who is paying even a little bit of attention to the basic policy evidence that this is going to make it harder and more expensive to build housing, and that will have a negative impact on prices. And that's not a good thing to be doing in the middle of some pretty serious housing and affordability that we're seeing. And also it's going to make the property tax system less efficient. And people are talking about a double-digit tax increase in the fall that this council is going to have to levy to pay for some of the infrastructure deficit. And that the kind of taxes that Calgarians may be seeing over the coming years could be mitigated with more infill housing and less sprawl to make a more tax-efficient system. So there were some attempts to change parts of that, and the councillors repealing had made a big deal of the fact that they were claiming that, there was the blanket that was the problem. If you find the right place to put the density, then they're okay with it. They basically showed during the hearing that they were lying. And I think the motion that really demonstrated that was Councillor Schmidt in Ward 8. He attempted to keep what's called the HCO district. So these are stacked townhouses. He attempted to keep a couple small strips of HCO in his ward and Mike Atkinson's ward in Ward 7 and 8 along transit corridors. And these were areas that blanket rezoning had zoned to HCO because they had been assigned as appropriate HCO areas through the local area planning process, where the community had kind of said, okay, yeah, we can get behind that. So there'd been targeted density with buy-in from the community along corridors identified by those communities. I participated in one of these plans, the South Shaganakby Local Area Plan, and 20th Avenue, right near where I live, is an excellent place for more HCO development. And it's widely recognized that that's the case, even among people who dislike blanket rezoning. But council killed it anyway. Council stripped away HCO from all of those areas. And that was an 11-4 vote. So that was a very one-sided vote. The vote to kill blanket rezoning was 12-3. The vote to kill HCO in Ward 7 and 8 was 11-4. And the vote to make it impermissible to build to build a basement suite and a garage suite on the same property in most of Calgary, that was only 8-7. So it was a little bit closer, but it's still, what we can take from this hearing is that this is a council that has clearly said, not we're going to compromise on housing, we're going to be more careful on housing. This is a council that says we're not interested in letting people build housing, and they're going to vote that way, and Calgarians are going to pay the price on their property tax bill and on their mortgage payments. It's going to be pretty ugly 4 years, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely brutal. And I'll note that this is a vibes-based decision that like that was made for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So good luck to all of us. Dominic, how are you feeling?
I'm happy to never be a homeowner in this city. I'm just going to rent for the rest of my life and watch the rent prices increase now because there's not going to be enough housing to supplement that. So really looking forward to it. I'm glad we're fucked for the next 4 years, at least.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. The next council is going to have to do even more upzoning because this council has failed. It's a dereliction of duty. I want to go through each of the councillors real quick and just highlight which of these people actually ran on repeal. Because I can appreciate somebody who ran on going to repeal the rezoning. I can appreciate somebody saying, like, yes, it was politically necessary for me to do this. I can appreciate that. But I think there were enough people in here that had enough nuance potentially that they could have done that. And there was a bit of an echo, so I muted you both. So if you want to speak, you'll have to unmute yourself. But we had in Ward 1, Kim Tyers, who did run on repeal. Jennifer Wyness did not. Andrew Yule did not. DJ Kelly did not. Raj Dhaliwal did not. Ward 6, John Pantasopoulos. That's basically the only thing that was on his literature. Mike Atkinson did not, Nate Schmidt did not, Harrison Clark did not, Andre Chabot did, Rob Ward did, Mike Jamieson did, Dan McLean did, and Landon Johnston did. So that's seven councillors who supported repealing, who said very specifically during their campaign, I will repeal the rezoning up to RCG. And then Mayor Farkas said that he would repeal and replace. And so what we got was a council or councillors that were split down the middle, and a mayor as a tiebreaker. And I think this is an absolute failure, and I think it's deeply embarrassing of all of the councillors who claim to be progressives, and frankly, the councillors who claim to be conservatives as well. I think they've completely screwed the pooch on this. Dominic, what do you think?
Well, I just think, yeah, exactly. Like these conservatives, what's the deal with property rights and everything that you claim to believe in when you are just allowing neighbors to refuse what their other neighbors can do and just introducing more red tape. And I think it's funny, and I kind of want to get your guys' perspective, being part of the Calgary party, DJ Kelly deciding to, vote for repeal. I think it was not unexpected, but a bit of a disappointment nonetheless.
Yeah. Denis, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it was a political decision. He knew that repeal was going to pass, and he decided that politically it was more dangerous for him to vote against repeal and potentially alienate people in his riding who don't like RCG than it was to kind of carry the flag on a dying motion. And I think he expects that people who want to build housing understand the political position he was in and will be sympathetic to him. And personally, I'm willing to be sympathetic to him if he votes the right way when it is close. And thus far he has. It's only a couple of votes so far, but he has been voting the right way on the motions that are pro-housing and passable. And if he keeps doing that, then I won't hold the repeal vote against him. But it does remain disappointing. And I'm also disappointed that Jennifer Wyness and Raj Dhaliwal, who both voted for rezoning and did not run on repealing it, they voted to repeal. That was, and weren't able to really give any clear reasons about it.
Yeah,
I think that was poor judgment, and I don't think it was politically necessary.
Yeah.
And the one that is most shocking and most damaging is Harrison Clark. Harrison Clark is a supposedly committed progressive. He is a former NDP staffer. He's has been involved in various left-wing causes, and he claims to care about poor people. But what he said during the hearing was that I heard all the people from Acorn, from tenants organizations, people struggling with the rental problems. I hear them come forward and I hear that they're scared. But I think they don't understand what's going on. I think they're confused and they're too frightened and they don't really understand what blanket rezoning is. So I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to repeal blanket rezoning and I'm not going to listen to these people. And I think that was profoundly condescending. And personally, I don't actually mind being condescending that much. But if you're going to be condescending, you have to be right. And Harrison is completely wrong on the economics. He does not understand how it works. And he's wrong on the policy. Blanket rezoning improves outcomes for people struggling at the bottom of the housing ladder. And the evidence on that is very strong and growing. As in the last 10 years, we've done long-term empirical studies of the last decade of upzonings in various places in the Western world, places like Auckland and Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
So, I think it was deeply disappointing from Harrison Clark.
Yeah, and for being the poor people guy, his messaging today with the CBC saying, going across Reconciliation Bridge into the East Village is like a war zone or whatever he said, and how he would never live above the superstore in East Village because it's so scary. And as someone who lives in the East Village, social disorder is going up, but there's ways to fix that, and the messaging that you're bringing about with that is not going to help anyone, right?
And he just voted against things that would help with
exactly.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you want to help these people, but you're not going to do anything to actually help them. So then you're just going to have your crappy anti-human messaging against them. So
yeah, I'm much probably more enforcement focused on social disorder than either of you, but I still think that was a very foolish statement. And the reason is that first of all, I don't think that physically healthy, young or middle-aged males should kind of be performatively afraid of social disorder, because the reality is just not that, like, the risks aren't that serious.
Well, and I think the biggest thing to note with the way that he presented this, it was a bit of a non sequitur. Right? Like, he didn't have to say that. He wasn't in a situation where he was being asked to say something about social disorder.
I didn't even consider that. That's a fair point, though.
I think that is the strangest thing. Because, when I was knocking doors last year, people would bring up to me their concerns with social disorder. And although, as a straight, white, able-bodied man, I don't experience social disorder concerns the same way that other people do. It's still my job and my role to, to appreciate and validate other people's real lived experiences. And I think that's absolutely fine for a politician to do, for anybody, for a human being to do. But when you're talking about housing, you're just like, man, it's crazy. You just go and it's just absolute mayhem whenever I go into East Village. Wow, it's nuts, bro. It's like, why did you have to say that? Why did you bring that up at all? You just voted against building more townhouses because you don't like their vibes. Right. And that's the problem with this whole council, is that they completely fundamentally misunderstand what their job is. Right. And it's on both sides. Right. Like, I think there are maybe a few conservative counselors who like get it a little bit more. But then, of course, ran on the repeal. And so they must repeal. And maybe they really do feel that way. And then there's some, progressive counselors like Nate Schmidt, who I think fundamentally does understand what his job is as a counselor and is working to make sure he's doing things right. But then you get all of these people in the middle who just don't have a fucking clue.
Yeah, you're not just representing the rich white people. Let's remember that. You're representing all Calgarians, right?
Yeah.
Including the unhoused.
Yeah. Including the ones that didn't vote.
Yeah. You know what? If I was a cynical rich white NIMBY living in Ward 12, I would want blanket rezoning. And the reason I would want blanket rezoning, if I didn't want development in my area and I didn't want immigrants in my area, I would want blanket rezoning to increase the density in other areas so that it takes pressure off of my area. And so my property taxes go down, and so that there's a better property tax base to build the Green Line down to Seton. Although maybe I wouldn't want the Green Line down to Seton because I wouldn't want transit anywhere near my nice neighborhood. But and the weirdest thing to me, and this is what strikes me about this is why I think Andrew Yule came out of this being the kind of one of the most thoughtful counselors, because he was somebody who it was clear he just didn't think blanket rezoning was the most relevant issue for his ward. He barely talked about it during the campaign. He didn't. I don't even think he had a position on it in his platform. But he listened during the debates, and he thought about the policy implications, and he ended up saying, "Hey, we don't have very much RCG, almost none. I think maybe actually none in Ward 3, but we have a lot of density. And we have more density than some of the donut communities in Ward 4 and 6 and 11 and 10. And so blanket rezoning is going to increase the density there, make the tax base more efficient, and make it more likely that we'll be able to build the Green Line North at some point into his ward at the end of Center Street, which is a service that is badly needed in that community." And so he looked at it and he said, based on the policy implications and the interests of my residents, here's my view on blanket rezoning. And I think that same view is one that the councillors for Ward 12 and Ward 14 should have if they were thinking more clearly, that they should be in favor of blanket rezoning as a way to take development pressures off of their neighborhoods with strong NIMBY populations. And that would be, and if that perspective were held by a couple of those conservative councillors, I understand why Ward in 11 or Dan McLean in 13 down at the end of the red line, why they think there actually will be implications from blanket rezoning. I think McLean's mistaken. There hasn't been anything yet, but you can at least see the case for it. If those councillors would vote in a less ideological and a more residents-focused way, they would actually be pro-blanket rezoning, even if they were strong NIMBYs. No, they're just not there. Yeah, and I think part of it is they don't understand what's going on.
Well, and I think there's that, but then I think also that there's their base, right? Like the people who they know will reliably vote for them and reliably support them in their political ambitions, don't want them to, like they wanted them to vote to repeal, right? I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, is that they wanted that, and then I think some people felt like we didn't have the votes, and so I voted on the winning side, quote unquote, and decided to roll with it to save their tail, I guess, and hopefully, live to fight another day. But it is a horrible decision with which this council has started things out. I think it's embarrassing that this is the way we're starting their term.
Yeah, they also voted to repeal without any replace option. So we're going to lose the half funding. I expect we'll lose the full 123 million or whatever. That would be. I think it would be surprising at this point, given that they repealed and they killed all of the even minor attempts to mitigate the damage or replace, that the feds will have any patience with Calgary, and so I expect there'll be very large losses that will lead to gutting a bunch of affordable housing programs and just general challenges in the budget. It'll also make development more expensive because some of the half money was going to support infrastructure to enable development in various areas. Those consequences were avoidable if the people who were more moderate had said, we will repeal with you, but we're going to agree on a replace option first, and then we'll pass the repeal motion. And a bunch of them basically got suckered by Chabot, and including the mayor. And that was a serious error in judgment on their part, and they are now stuck. They will have to have an entirely new public hearing in order to get anything substantive on replace, and there may simply not be the political appetite to even do a new one. So I think what's most likely now is that we actually will not get any replacement until the zoning bylaw comes through, and that could be a year and a half, 2 years. We don't know.
That might be next council, because this council is not giving me the sense that they're interested at all in any zoning reform. Unless it is going farther and farther backwards.
So then what's the hearing in July regarding basement suites? or no, you said backyard suites.
Yeah, so that's a good question. The one motion that Nate was able to get through the council was a motion to add a question on permitted versus discretionary use for backyard suites and basement suites in R1 and R2 districts. R1, RC1, R2, all those kind of below RCG residential districts. And right now, my understanding, so the distinction between permanent and discretionary use is discretionary use means you can do it, but you have to show how you're going to do it and ask for permission. And it goes to council to see whether or not you're allowed. A permitted use, what you have to do is there's some rules about how you can use that permitted use option. And this could be for anything, whether it's like a basement suite or a row house or an apartment. There's permitted uses and discretionary uses in every zone for a variety of different housing forms. A permitted use just has to meet the regulatory requirements, be signed off by a planner, and away you go. You move on to the development permit stage. You get your development permit, you move on to the building permit stage. And I think in the case of basement suites, once they're permitted use, you can now actually skip the development permit stage if it already exists. So like if there's a house with a basement, you don't even need a development permit. You can just turn it into a basement suite. You just need the building permit and then the inspection to make sure it's safe. Because it's not like you're not developing anything, you're just renovating a basement, and we don't require development permits for renovating basements. Mm-hmm. Nate would like to move all of the suite stuff into permitted use. So that anytime you're doing a suite, it's just like, it's something you're allowed to do, and you go fill out the paperwork, get the inspection, and get it done. And it's not something we have to have a big conversation over. That will reduce regulatory timelines. It'll make it much easier for homeowners to build, because if you try to send homeowners through these complex regulatory processes that are really designed for like big developers, it makes it impossible to build a suite for your grandma or something. You have to spend like $100K on consultants. It's ridiculous, right? Spend 2 years of your life trying to figure out how to like use your property to house your family. So I think this is a good change, but it is trivial in size compared to the other things, to all the damage that council has done. And all they've done is agree to talk about it at the next public hearing. So there is a public hearing every month, regardless. There's always a public hearing where they bring forward items that have to go to public hearing. So they're just tacking it onto the schedule for July. They're not calling a new public hearing. There's no big notice protocol. It's just getting tacked onto the agenda for the July public hearing.
So we'll just have more racist grandmas talking about how there's going to be a predator looking into their backyard from the new the new backyard suite.
There also might be nothing. There also might be nobody out there. I don't know.
We'll see. I feel pretty strongly that we can do it through the LAP is just kicking the can down the road. I don't want to spend I want to talk about a couple other things, and I don't want this episode to be too long. But before we move on, I want to talk about what's next. Before we get to that, though, I want to hear from you guys both. Who was the most disappointing counselor to come out of this? Because this was kind of our opportunity to see where people put their money, right? Are they actually committed to something? Do they believe in something? Or is this going to be quality at all? Who was the most disappointing counselor, and who was the counselor that stood out to you as the best? Dominick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, disappointing, I think, is Easy Clark. You're in Ward 9, that's a very diverse population of people who need all different kinds of housing, and you just killed it for all those people. He pitched himself as being a bit more progressive. What was the program that backed him, or the group that backed him?
Calgary's Future.
Yeah, Calgary's Future backed him. So there was a little bit of hope that maybe he would make the right decision, and clearly he didn't, and who knows if he ever will. And I think I was similar to sort of what Denise said earlier, surprised by Ewell and happy with his messaging around it, because it was thoughtful. It cares about the city as a whole, and someone who I didn't know where he was going to go, because that's sort of what he pitched the whole time he was running, and even over the last couple of months of being in council, it was, oh, I don't know which way I'm going to go. And he mentioned that too in his final sort of speech. He said, oh, one day I told my staff I was for it, the next day I told my staff I was against it. And so I was most pleasantly surprised by him for sure.
Yeah. Denis.
Yeah, so I actually have the same ones as Dominick, so I'll maybe go second and second just to mix it up. Second, outperforming. Actually, maybe nobody has done better than I would have hoped, other than Yule.
Yeah.
I had fairly low expectations for this council, and they've managed to dash them. Yeah, I think I have to mulligan. Maybe Nate Schmidt is.
And I think Nate did exactly what we expected him to do, which was be a decent city councilor, right?
Yeah. Maybe Nate is 5% stronger on governance and engagement than I thought he would be. I think he's just being a very responsible city councilor, and being serious about circulating his motions, bringing them forward, explaining them clearly. A lot of the councilors just can't even explain what they're trying to do. Nate is like, here's what my motion is, here's why I'm bringing it, here's exactly what it does, and here's how I've set it up so that you can interact with it, split it into pieces if you only like half of it. That's just responsible collegial good governance. So, but yeah, no, this council is profoundly disappointing. The most disappointing after Clark, maybe Dollywall.
Yeah, just
Maybe
because he
Dollywall so
voted
far.
for the upzoning in the first place, and
No, not because of that. I that was going to die anyway.
Yeah.
So, and he's a political actor, so being on the winning team, I'm not totally shocked by it. I'm not happy about it, but maybe not. But no, it was. He killed the secondary suite amendment.
right, yeah,
They wanted to make it Nate brought an amendment to make it so that you could have a backyard suite and a basement suite.
yeah,
And this would have been a tool to allow some gentle density through duplexes,
yeah,
especially in the RC2 zone.
yeah. Disappointing.
Dollywall asked these wild questions about please explain to me what you do when there's multiple illegal suites. And it's that has nothing to do with the zoning.
No,
It's that's like saying, please explain to me why we can have speed limits when sometimes people speed. It's well, what are we even talking about? There's a distinction between the rules and enforcement. It's just that's basic. And he said, well, we have so many secondary suites in my area, and I'm worried about illegal suites. And then he just voted it down.
yeah,
And it's dude, you have so many secondary suites in your area because that's a form of housing that people need. So why don't you let them build it?
yeah,
And give the city the tools to oversee it and regulate it and make sure it's safe, right? That you don't want the backyard suites illegally connected to the electrical and then, something burns down.
yeah.
We do I'm not a fan of government regulation, but I do like electrical safety rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a good form of regulation.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I agree with all of your guys' takes. I'm not sure that I have anything different to say. There are people who acted exactly as we expected them to act. Pantazopoulos, Ward, Jameson, Tyres, all voting, to repeal. That all makes sense, right? But then it's disappointing to see people who claim to be progressive to completely misunderstand what's happening and go the other way. So let's talk about what's next, though. What's going to happen with housing after this? Are we just doomed for the next, 3.5 years with this council? Is it just over, or is there something we can do, some wins we can make, or some headway we can take? Denis, we'll start with you, and then Dominick, I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, so it's a good question. There is a bunch of housing policy that could come before this council. And I'll suppose I'll put it into 4 buckets. One, there could be an updated zoning bylaw. I do think that there will be actually this term. I'm concerned it's going to be extremely bad, but but there should be an updated zoning bylaw this term. The Calgary plan, that's the municipal development plan, will be updated this term, and that sets the broader policy framework for housing. There's some question as to how impactful that will be, but it won't be 0% impactful. The zoning bylaw will certainly be much more important. There will be individual projects. So, irrespective of rezoning, the larger projects still require zoning hearings. And there's going to be a large master plan community in Sunnyside, Kensington Yards or something. Mm-hmm. That could face massive NIMBY opposition. I don't know if there's organizing already. I don't know if it's a project that's liked. I'm not sure where it is. But there'll be ongoing housing projects that could engender massive opposition, like Glenmore Landing. And whether or not those pass, on a case-by-case basis, it will be an important part of determining how effective this council is. And then there are what we could call kind of one-offs or boutique amendments that could be done. So actually, maybe we'll call it 5 things, right? Because there's the ongoing LAP process.
Yeah.
So the boutique amendments are stuff like this stuff with the suites, changing some of the rules around the suites, making it easier. This is already passed, but a housekeeping amendment in the last council removed a bunch of unnecessary regulations in the HCO district, requirements for mobility storage lockers that were excessive. Like it was like you had 6 parking spots and 8 mobility storage lockers. And it's like, yes, the average set of townhomes clearly has 6 cars and 8 e-bikes. Like that's exactly the ratio,
Yeah.
Like I think mobility storage lockers are great, but don't mandate, 8 times as many as are actually going to be needed.
Yeah, I don't think any parking should be mandated.
Yeah, well, yes, I agree with you there. So
yeah.
There are all these sort of little things that can be done through notices of motion. I think something that could happen in that vein is I think there is some genuine appetite from the Conservative councillors who are quite connected with the development industry to make the bureaucracy, just the raw processing times of doing the paperwork to get things from application to approval, to cut paperwork time.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. That's something we should support. And I hope they're able to execute on it, because if they can just have all the paperwork times, that's going to be, honestly, that may be just as impactful as rezoning for housing, if they can have all the paperwork times. I'm not sure they'll actually be able to. I think it's doable. I don't know if they will be able to do it, but that would be good. And the last thing is LAPs. There was some talk during the debate about creating a mechanism whereby an LAP, which sort of sets a policy framework for density in an area, actually creates an administrative upzoning. So once the community agrees through the LAP process that there should be more density in certain areas, that admin is actually empowered to rezone it to its, that triggers like an automatic process without like a developer application.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice. I'm not necessarily optimistic that that's something that's actually going to happen.
No, I think they were just saying that during the debate because they're liars. But there will be more LAPs, and those LAPs could be better or worse, and so that'll be another area. And those are, although they do go before council, there's considerable consultation and direct engagement with planners before that, so that'll be an important place for people to engage in the coming 3.5 years. Even if council is hostile, the LAP process itself occurs in an engagement framework that doesn't have council directly mucking around in it until it actually gets to them, when it's like a pretty baked in product. They will still muck around, but they have less capacity to do so.
Yeah. Dominick, what do you think is next? Or maybe what's next for you? Are you moving anywhere? Or
I mean, speaking a lot more broadly, I guess, is just get ready for a fight on everything, right? 4 years of just having to be the most annoying person that your counselor can name. Just getting on their ass about everything, because this isn't the only thing they're going to do, right? Like, free fare zone is coming up in the downtown area, and at a time when affordability sucks, gas prices are going up, grocery prices are going up. They just made affordability worse by, killing housing, and now who knows what they're going to do with the only sort of free fare area we have, which is used by a lot of people. So I think it's just going to be prepared to fight for the next 4 years, be a pain in the ass, go to the public hearings and just annoy the shit out of your counselor, for 4 years until we can hopefully get someone better in there. Because, I mean, the fight continues. I guess it never really stops, does it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Well, I'm not going to take up too much of your guys' time. I think this was a nice wrap up, and I think we are all extraordinarily exhausted by what this hearing has been, and we've heard a lot of different things, and I think we're all extraordinarily disappointed in this city council and in the next 4-ish years that we're going to have to be dealing with them. So we'll see how it goes. They all say they support transit, so I'm optimistic that maybe we can get some transit wins. But they all say that they want lower taxes and lower density, which means we're going to get shittier services, regardless of what they promise. So, I think one thing that I want to note is that all of the councillors who voted, who were gung-ho, who ran on repeal, also ran on lower taxes, on lower property taxes. And I think Denise said it well. They are liars. They are lying to you. They know that the rest of City Council will hold the bag for them. And I think at some point, maybe the rest of City Council needs to call their bluff. And at some point, maybe the rest of City Council needs to say, you know what, you're right. We are not going to raise property taxes. We're going to do nothing. We're going to let everything crumble. We're going to let everything fall apart because this is the city council that people voted for. This is the city council who wants lower density, who wants better services, and also wants lower property taxes. You cannot have all three of those things. And I think this city council, at least most of them, I think most of them are smart enough to understand that. But they find their political opportunities to get away with saying one thing and doing another and hoping that somebody else is left holding the bag. And the people left holding the bag are us. It's everybody who fights for this stuff and advocates for this stuff, and the people who will be paying property taxes 50 years from now. I know Chabot told somebody during the public hearing, he said, well, you know, the maintenance isn't going to be due on those new neighborhoods until 50 years from now. Oh, well, fantastic. I'm still going to be paying property taxes 50 years from now. So thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chabot, for leaving me holding the bag. I really sincerely, truly appreciate it. But what I appreciate more and unsarcastically is Denis and Dominick for joining me. Thanks, guys. And we will see you on another episode of Council Island.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank
Good to see
you,
Dominick. Take
Bye-bye.
care.